Hello, I'm Howard Schechter, proprietor of The Perfect Edge, and it's a business I started about 22 years ago, and based on a lifetime of sharpening different blades and tools. And about 22 years ago is when this whole straight razor craze started, and um, it's something that I immediately gravitated towards because it's extreme honing. It's not like sharpening a knife or an axe, and you've got to be using a very delicate hand to do it. And little changes make big changes in the way that the razor shaves your face. So, um, I went to a barn sale in Rutland, Mass, and bought a tackle box full of whetstones that were all dirty and greasy and oily. And I took them home and I cleaned them. And there was one that I found that I had no idea how it was made or where it came from. And it turned out it was a naturally double Belgian whetstone. I found it through the geological databases, and I got in touch with the Silly family, who are in the southeast of Belgium. And it's a family quarry that has been in place since Roman times. In fact, Pliny the Younger actually trailed with the Roman army and talked about the Belgian stones of Vilsam, because the Romans sharpened their swords and their lances with the Belgian stones. That's how long they've been in use. They have been the stone of choice for barbers for a few hundred years. And the Belgians were very happy to hear from me, because they were just thinking about the American market, and I showed up, and next thing I knew, there was a box of stones, very unusual stones, on my kitchen table, and I took my kitchen knife and I sharpened it on one of the blue Belgian stones. There are two. There's a blue and a yellow. And after a minute on the blue stone, the blade felt sharp, and I said, "Oh, this can't be." And then I tested it on my arm hair, and it was like, "Oh my God, it's sharp. What is this thing?" So I experimented further with them and talked to Maurice Silly, the father. Rob Silly is the son, and he was very pleased that I had such good positive results, and we started. I started receiving these and selling them in the American market. Now, they were in the U.S. up until about 1900, but then the Pike Company in New Hampshire, which sold them, was bought by the Norton Company of Worcester, Massachusetts. And what they did was they stopped selling natural stones and wanted Pike to be the sales arm for their new manufactured refractory stones. So they disappeared from the American market until I showed up and reintroduced them into the American market. So I know that if you go on the various websites for shaving, some people don't believe that or don't know about that, but some of the people who've been around the industry for a long time know that, and were instrumental in my early success with the Belgian stones. So these are the Belgian stones. This is the caudicle, and it's like a cream color yellow. They vary in color. It's a natural product. They're full of garnets, and it's a real unique mineralogy. That part of the world has been metamorphosed, and there's been volcanic activity there on and off, and it grew in the stone layers. It grew these beautiful caudicle stones. And this is the select grade conical. Now there are a number of different types of conical stones, and this has been available in the U.S. for about 6 or 7 years now, and there are various different grades. I've tried many of them, and I don't like a lot of them. I like predictability in stones. I want to know that when I use a stone, that the razor I'm honing is going to behave the same way that the previous razor did. So I only sell the select grade. There are people who can decode the various conicals for you. Why I don't like them is another reason is you've got to use water, and then you use a light slurry, then you use a heavy slurry, then finish with no water, and there's all these various machinations you've got to go through that I don't like. And so I only sell what I consider to be the best grade, which is the select grade of conical. The other stone is this beautiful blue Belgian stone, and this type of stone is much more common in the Belgian mine, and there's only one supplier of these stones. The Belgian blue is so common that you can actually see houses with bricks made of it around Vilsam in the countryside, and people do make stone walls, and they must be beautiful because this is a beautiful blue stone. The blue stone is about a 4,000 grit. The conical is about an 8,000 grit. You'll see various people saying differently, 8 to 10,000. But what the truth about it is, grit size itself is not a hard and fast number. An 8,000 DMT and an 8,000 conical and an 8,000 Norton will all show up differently under the microscope when you're looking at an edge. So grit size is not equivalent from one technology to the other. What I can tell you is that if you're honing straight razors, you can get a shave-ready edge off of a conical. And when I use the select grade, I don't seem to have the problems that other people have when they use this conicals with the cute French names. So that's my perspective on Belgian conicals. I've been selling them for over 20 years, using them every day, and all different sizes. This is about a 4 by 1.5. This is the most common. It's a 6 by 2. And interestingly enough, I've studied hones in museums around the world, everywhere from an Inuit museum in Alaska to Athens, where they had emperors and kings' stones, to the stones in Dublin. The University of Dublin has a museum with Viking whetstones. The University of Iceland at Reykjavik. Even if the culture did not have a number system or an alphabet system, if they were not literate or numerate, always seemed to have about 6 by 2 as the preferred size. It just fits the human hand, which itself is very variable. But, and so, a lot of my customers usually do 6 by 2. I usually like a bigger stone, an 8 by 3 or an 8 by 2, because you just have more room to work on. This conical is 10 by about 2, and this is a natural double stone. It's blue on one side, it's conical yellow on the other side, and it's the only quarry in the world where you find a natural double. Now, there are people who say you could get that out of Thuringia with some of the Escher stones, and I have many Escher stones in my study collection, but none of them are as dramatic as this. This, by the way, this wood box is the original wood box that was routed out and had a leather strap on it. The Belgians no longer do that, so this is kind of a historical piece as well, and that's something I appreciate. The stone I use every day and have been using every day for probably at least 15 years is this 6x2 natural double. It's hasn't worn appreciably, and the reason for that is this is a finishing stone. It's not like a bevel stone where you're really grinding away and leaving a lot of steel on the stone. This is a finishing stone, and the metal that's left behind on the stone is very, very fine. So they're not used up very quickly. I have had guys bring me their grandfather's cauticles. So it was in their family for their grandfather, their father, and now them. So they're 2 or 3 generation stones. They're not cheap, but they're not expensive. And what I mean by that is how many products can you buy for, say, $150, which people will be using 100 years from now? Not many. So not cheap at first, but not expensive either when you amortize out how much it costs over time. So you can see on this Belgian blue here, this lighter area, and what that is the slurry. And what I do is, at the end of a honing session, I just let the slurry dry on the stone, and then afterwards, when I'm ready to hone again, I just spritz it down and reactivate the slurry. Now, some people have said to me that this is not a good practice because there's steel in the slurry. But again, there's not a lot of steel coming off of a stone by the time I get to the Belgian blue and the conical stage. So I have not found it to be a problem. I mean, you certainly don't see it in the slurry. I can see it in the slurry when I'm on a Shapton 500 because it's white and you can see it. But even though the conical is very light colored, I don't see the steel. So there's not that much coming off. And on the 16,000 and 30,000 Shaptons, which are what I finish on after the conical, the amount of steel and the size of the particles is very, very small. So when I did my first video many years ago from Nick's Shaves, Nick came here and did that. The video came out and everybody sent their razors to me, and I was honing 7 days a week, like 10 razors a day. And by Christmas, I was having shooting pains in my deltoid and a sharp pain going down into my chest. And it was not a heart attack. It was just overuse of that. And I found this machine that was being used in industry. They're no longer made. I was very lucky to find one. And what it is it's a honing machine that you can use wet. And so when I hone razors, the first thing I do is wet down the blue side, and then I will use the blade on that blue right after a Shapton 500. Now people go, whoa, you're going from 500 to 4,000? And all I can say is, try it. Okay, I know that intuitively it makes sense. It seems like, oh, I should go to a 2,000 or I should go to a 1,000 and a 3,000. And I can absolutely tell you, and you'll see it when you use the microscope on the edge, I can absolutely tell you that going from the 500 to the 4,000 is no problem. The blue Belgian is an aggressive stone. The garnet particles are big relative to the conical, and they form a slurry which is very abrasive. It works quickly and it polishes smoothly. And it's the only stone I know that does that. So if I were heading to the hills, I would grab a Belgian blue and take that with me. It's my go-to stone for almost every blade that I sharpen that comes through the shop. So all you do is grab a blade, I get it going, put this down on it, and I go up and down the stone like that. Usually do about 60, count to 60, turn it over, do the other side. Oh, and let me just, make a point here. When I'm holding a razor on a stone to hone it, I'm holding it over here. I'm not holding it here. And the reason for that is because this joint with this pivot rivet is not as strong as holding it by the neck of the razor. So I'm mildly putting some turning force on it. Turning force this way is called torque, and it helps to hold the edge down on the stone in addition to my 3 fingers making sure all the parts of the razor are on the stone. And then when I'm finished with it, I just dry it off and inspect it under the microscope. Take a look and see what's been done. Well, that's actually looking pretty good. And then I turn it over, spritz it, and then go at it with the caudicle. So when I'm done with the caudicle, I will take it to my arm. Oh, that's already pretty short. I didn't really work on this blade either. They're really good stones, the Belgian stones. So there you go. That's the Belgian stones, and that's why I love them.